Video Ezy have the range, the price, and 3 big locations to choose from. No one can beat the range.
I miss video shops, or whatever you might have called them, whether you called them like movie rental stores, or just referred to them as Blockbuster by default like a lot of people. Whatever you called it, the place where you would go and rent physical copies of movies. It was like one of my favorite places in the world. I'm sure I'm not the only one that misses them. I know that like a lot of people have this strong nostalgia for that time where they could go to their local Blockbuster or whatever and go down the aisles, and the smell of that place and just the total environment. It's a thing that is just completely lost in our world now. Like, it's not a thing that you can really experience anymore, at least not in the same way. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's this weird part of history that like I caught the end of in my life, and I wish it was still around, but it's not. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, yeah, me too. I'm nostalgic for the late 90s and early 2000s too, like this YouTube guy here. But wait, no, you're hearing me wrong. I was still renting movies from in 2012, 2013. Me and my wife, we single-handedly, I think, kept some of those stores open, to be honest. I mean, obviously that's a total exaggeration, but like, we were meaningful customers, I feel like, when it came to these sorts of places. And we were those weirdos, okay? We kept it on for as long as we could. They were dying out for years. It was a slow, painful death for video shops. Like, we knew that they were on their way out. It was like 2014 or so, and it's like, yeah, these places are not really cool anymore, I guess. And we started to be the weirdos who were still going to rent physical copies of movies. And if you look at it logically, it didn't make heaps of sense, because torrenting we were in the midst of torrenting. Everybody torrented. That's just the case. Torrenting was a big thing.
Downloading films is stealing. If you do it, you will face the consequences.
And I guess still is, but maybe not as much nowadays. Because of in 2015, when we were still going to rent physical copies of movies at that time, we were in that year. But then Netflix came to Australia, and the death of them really began. And it was like, just, this one went out of business. This one went out of business. I'm not good at... This one went out of business. This one went out of business. I'm not good at clicking my fingers, but it was just like left, right, and center. They were just going out, and there were only a few to begin with, because, as I said, it was a pretty dying industry by the year 2015. Like, nobody was really going to rent physical copies of movies, and like, it made me kind of sad at the time, but I don't know. It was kind of cool to still have the opportunity to go to those few local ones that were still left, and you know, it kind of made you feel like it kind of made you feel like you were helping out this small business, and that was kind of nice as well. But like, the beauty of renting physical copies of movies is just something that is lost. It's something that like kids nowadays and shit are not gonna ever experience, and like, maybe that's a good thing, because we wasted a bunch of time and money doing it. Like I said, it didn't make that much logical sense. We really didn't have to. We could have bought digitally or torrented or whatever. There were other avenues, especially when Netflix finally did come out. But there's just something about it, right? Like, I can't be the only one that thinks so. There was just something special about walking into these places that were like these just giant nerd shrines for movies. Like, I don't know, they felt partly historical. They were just like these places where I felt like I did kind of fit in. But mainly, I think what it kind of allowed me to do throughout my teens and stuff when I was still renting movies was that it allowed me to discover stuff without... with restrictions, which sounds like it's bad, but in a way, it kind of made you, since you were paying for it, it kind of made you commit to something. And it made me like, because you're looking at the covers, and because it's like an important decision, I guess, because you're spending $10 to rent 10 movies or something, which was usually something like the deal was when we would go like every week, or to be honest, multiple times a week. It allowed me to like look and consider different types of movies and like indie stuff. I discovered a lot of stuff because of these sorts of shops that like, I feel like Netflix, I mean, has the potential to also do, but I feel like when it comes to Netflix, it's like there's so much there. There are no limitations, and you kind of just like flicking through, flick forever. And since you're just at home on your couch and stuff, you can get stuck in that rut. But when you're going to this place, there's something special about looking at the back, and, you know, of the DVD or VHS, if we're talking before my time. There was just something special about discovering something in that context. There was something special about, I don't know, not just having it available on your screen. It was more personal. It was more like just for you. You know, like not everybody is watching the same movie at once, for example. Like that Extraction movie that just came out that I didn't actually watch. Everybody was watching that when that came out on Netflix. You know, obviously the same can be said for cinemas, I guess, but it feels different because it's like when this pandemic that we're in at the moment happened, for instance, everybody has been talking about Contagion and have been watching the movie Contagion. And, you know, it's kind of like a cool intersected viewing, I guess, where everybody can kind of relate and talk about that thing. But when you would go to rent a physical copy of a movie, it was like just for you. It was kind of singular in that sense. And I kind of miss that a little bit, although now that I'm saying it out loud, it sounds kind of lonely. I don't know, you know, like I came on to start recording this video and I was like, I'm going to have heaps to say about this. But I think it's kind of a hard kind of phenomenon to explain. It's a difficult thing to kind of talk about in why I loved renting movies so much. I'm not exactly sure. Logically, I'm not exactly sure, but I really did. Maybe it was just the environment of going there. Maybe it was just that it gave me and my wife something to do together. I have like a strong connection to physical media. I made a video like a month or two ago talking about whether I thought DVDs or Blu-rays were still worth buying. I mean, it's pretty safe to say what my opinion is on that, right? But, you know, would renting physical copies of movies be worth it still as well? And I would say, hell no, definitely not. It's a huge waste of money. It really is, especially with so much access that we have digitally nowadays for essentially free. I mean, the membership payments for Netflix or whatever, you are paying for it, but like, you know, it feels essentially free when you go on to watch something on Netflix. And you know, that's a really hard thing to counter, you know? It makes sense why that industry died away. It's very irrelevant nowadays. You know, streaming services definitely made that business obsolete. It's just not a thing that you would need to do anymore. And like, now that I think about it, it's like, it feels like it would be a huge waste of time. But I'm still so nostalgic for that time. Like, it felt like it was this big kind of deal, being able to get 10 movies at a time, try and experience them for the first time, and having to give them back. You had a time restraint, so it's like, okay, I have to watch these or else I've wasted money. And like, you want to get special kinds of movies that, like, I don't know, I just feel like it was kind of like this extra motivational thing to kind of push you to watching more quality films than just watching some trash shit on Netflix. There was something nice about having that motivation and those limitations that kind of personally turned me into a cinephile. I think part of it was because of video shops and being able to rent them. Like, I wouldn't have discovered so many low budget horror movies, for example, like the Wrong Turn series, if you've ever heard of that. I wouldn't have found that on something like Netflix, which would not stream a movie like that. Or even probably like even more obscure stuff that didn't have tens of sequels. But like, yeah, just going down that avenue of renting movies physically, it allowed me to discover more things than I think I might have on Netflix, because on Netflix it's like you watch the popular stuff, it kind of features certain things and pushes you to watch certain things. Obviously you're not physically getting pushed or forced to watch anything, but I don't know, I love Netflix too. I'm not trying to badmouth it. I'm not trying to say renting movies physically is better, because it's by far not anymore. It's so irrelevant in today's kind of age, but just looking back on renting movies, I'm very nostalgic for it. And yeah, I think I'm always going to miss the days where I could still go do that. But that being said, the second best thing when it came to video shops was honestly when they closed and they had to sell every single thing they had. They had to liquidate all their media. And so they would put everything on like super cheap sale. Like, I remember this one time, pretty soon after I moved into my first place with my wife, there was a local video shop there. That was open for like maybe a month or so after that. And we rented some stuff when we were there. But then they closed down pretty soon after and they went on this massive sale. And legit, I bought 100 movies in a day. Because they were all like $1 or something at that time. And, you know, how old was I? This was a few years ago, I guess. I think I was like 19. I'm like, I don't have anything better to spend my money on. Fuck it, let's buy a bunch of movies. And you know what? Maybe not that much has changed, because, yeah, I feel kind of the same way. No, not true. I'm a big tight-ass saver. That's why I've only got up to here tattooed. I don't have any more tattoos at the moment because they're too expensive. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe you got something out of this video. Maybe you feel the same way. If you want to talk nostalgia about this kind of stuff, cool, go for it. Go down into the comments and all that shit. Do the things. You know the things, like, comment, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, watch me next time.